Hello everyone, welcome to Tactica Imperialis and to today's video. Today is going to be another My Thoughts On. And today I wanted to talk about something a little bit aside from 40k and from AOS and from the news in general. I wanted to talk about specialist games. Because specialist games, however you define them, have become more and more popular over the last couple of years now that GW's decided to reboot a few. And of course we've also received a lot of what you might call spin-offs. Whether you count them as specialist games is up to you. Games such as Warhammer Underworlds, games such as the upcoming Speed Freaks, games such as Kill Team. They may or may not count as specialist games to your mind, but they are games that are based in the same universe as the main series games, but they are not using the same rule set. They use their own rules, just stay within the universe for lore and that sort of thing. They build on the universe in a way that the main series games don't quite allow. I realise that sounded very video gamey, but you sort of get what I mean. They're spin-offs. And these games are becoming more and more common and more popular, both in terms of number of releases and player base. People are picking up a lot more, people are more interested in them, and that's great. But I personally have never found a reason to invest in specialist games. And I thought by doing this video I might try and explain to you and to myself sort of why I don't do that. So this is going to be quite a rambly video. So if you quite like laser focused discussion, go elsewhere. This is not going to be that style of video today, I'm afraid. So what is it about specialist games that make them so appealing, so popular, so intriguing for you and I as a player? Well, the first thing they do is, if you're someone like me, they add to the lore of the universe in a way that the main games can't. They allow you to get down into the nitty-gritty and maybe explore something that the main series can't really look at. Something like Warhammer Underworld. Whilst that lore doesn't seem as heavily developed as the rest of Age of Sigmar is now with AOS 2, it's a very interesting look into something that the core book only hints at and talks about very briefly in sort of broad overtones. Now you can get really into the underworlds and how they work in the Mirrored City, and we'll see more of that with the upcoming Night Vault expansion. Also, if you look at games such as Kill Team Rogue Trader, they allow us to look at factions that are too small to be represented properly in the main game. We do know that the Rogue Trader box set, both factions will get a codex. A very small one, of course, but a codex. But without games like Kill Team that would introduce them, it wouldn't really make sense to just add them to the game. So it allows us to explore those factions as well. It also allows the designers to take a walk on a bit of the zany side. Maybe look into or experiment with mechanics that the main game just could not support very well. So Kill Team and AOS Skirmish, which are basically spin-offs and not really that different from the base games, are very good at introducing, well, skirmish, small-scale encounters. Shadespire takes that one step further by changing it to a hex-based system with a very small team and adding in lots of different card mechanics. Then you could look at games like Blood Bowl, which are very lore-breaking, but are also exciting and different and allow them to take a walk on the wild side with the Warhammer Fantasy license and universe as it was. Whether it will get translated into AOS, who knows, who cares at this moment in time, well, I care. But it's a very interesting look and allows the designers to do something utterly crazy. Then you have games like Battlefleet Gothic. How do you represent fleet combat using the 40k rules? You can't. So we do Battlefleet Gothic, and that gives us new mechanics to look at to show how ships interact in the 41st millennium. Adeptus Titanicus, same thing. Exceptionally complicated game where you have to micromanage all of the systems on your Titan whilst focusing on blowing up your opponent's Titan. It's very intricate, and I can really see the appeal. So you've got the lore appeal, the interesting mechanics appeal, and the complexity for players. Also, some of the models involved are utterly gorgeous. The Shadespire teams, I've been tempted to buy those on several occasions. And between Tactica, Speed Freaks, there are so many amazing sets of models hidden away in the spin-off games. And of course, Necromunda well, that's become a universe in and of itself. That has multiple factions, deep, intricate lore. Some of it's ancient, some of it's new. It's built its own microcosm within the universe, and that's the beauty of specialist games. There's no way we get any way of looking into the inner workings of a world like Necromunda using the base game mechanics. There'd just be no room in the game to introduce all of these factions and all of that lore in anything other than background text, in overtones. So doing Necromunda allows us to explore all of that, and that's great lore insight, that's great for homebrewers. It's just fantastic overall. So I really do see the appeal of specialist games. But I have never invested in a specialist game. You'll note I've never played one on the channel. I mean, I played a kill team game of sorts back in 7th edition, but that was basically a homebrew game where we sort of half played kill team and sort of half didn't. Other than that, I can't think of ever played a specialist game on the channel. I've not done any of the 30k missions from the Burning of Prospero. I never did any of the missions from anything, really. It's just not what I do. You've noticed that it's never been on the channel. So what stops me and what stops others from investing in specialist games? For me, I have it down to about 3 or 4 factors. Cost, opposition, and versatility of the models. Specialist games, as a rule of thumb, are quite expensive to invest into for most games. Games like Titanicus, very, very expensive. Games like Shadespire, not so much, but it's 30 quid to get your team, then you've got to get the rules and the board, and then with Nightvault you have to get some expansion rules, or maybe Nightvault will just rewrite all the stuff from Shadespire until it doesn't matter anymore. It's a lot of money that you have to invest into a game that you have no experience with. It's not like buying a new army for 40k or AOS, because chances are you'll have either run across that army or been able to experiment with that army quite a lot without having to invest at all. The second problem is opposition. How many people can you get to play that specialist game with you? That, to me, has always been a huge challenge. Sure, I could buy Blood Bowl and split it with one of my friends, and we each get our own team. I could absolutely do that. Just get a team each and have a go. But how many times am I going to want to play that person with those teams? I'm then going to have to invest either in a new team or in new players to swap in and swap out, or in expansions so I can add new ideas into the game. I'm going to have to do something to spice up those games so I'm not just playing the same game against the same person all of the time. And the other thing I can do is try and get more people involved in playing it. But as I learned with Age of Sigmar, people are quite slow to want to get into a game. Because Age of Sigmar, when it came out, unless you had a fantasy army on the go, there was no real reason to start investing in it unless you were already invested in it. Like, I had some Dark Elves, so I went and got some more Dark Elves, and then they split them up, and, well, here we are today. But I wasn't probably going to go for Age of Sigmar if I didn't have a bunch of fantasy models that I could use to play Age of Sigmar. And it was the same with my friendship group. A lot of people didn't have the models that they wanted to invest in AOS, or to already start playing AOS. So getting them to invest was not easy. It happened, but it took over a year before most of us had an army. I mean, 2 years, maybe until the end of AOS 1's entire lifespan, before all of us had an army. And now with AOS 2, we do all have an army. But it took us a long time to get everybody invested, particularly those who didn't have the game already. And that's doubly problematic for specialist games, because you've got to get a unique set of models that you can never use anywhere else. They're just there for that game only in many cases. I'll get onto that point. And you've got to enjoy that style of game. Some people don't like the skirmish style of Shadespire. Some people don't like having cards. Some people prefer the broader scale of the universe where it's lots of units running around, not lots of individual dudes running around. And some people just don't like that zany side. Some people, like me, I don't care so much about Titans. I just kind of don't. And the same with Battlefleet Gothic. I just kind of... It's cool, but I don't really want to play it. So that is another reason why people don't invest. And reason 3 is the models themselves. The models are utterly gorgeous in many, many cases, but how often can you take the models that you bought for that specialist game and put them into another game? So they have recently introduced the Warhammer Underworld's teams into Age of Sigmar. Very nice, thank you very much. So now if I buy the Fast Riders to go and play a game of Shadespire and I think it sucked, well, okay, fine. I have a few Specialist Vanguard Hunters that I can make into a special unit, or that I can just use as conversions and specialist leaders for my Hunter unit. Okay, I can live with that. But what about Necromunda? Can I use my Necromunda models anywhere outside of Necromunda? I mean, some of them might make quite cool Imperial Guardsman conversions. Sure, you can probably get some good conversions out of them, but that's a lot of work, and if you're not a skilled modeler, it can really not work out for you. What about Blood Bowl? What the hell do you do with your Blood Bowl team if everybody you know stops playing Blood Bowl or you stop playing Blood Bowl? What do you do with them? They just sit there gathering dust, or you sell them. Titanicus, same problem. And when the games are as expensive as they are, and the models are so not versatile, and you might not always get opponents that keep you interested and keep the game fresh, you kind of hedge your bets on investing in the game. Or at least I do. That's why I haven't bought into any specialist game. I've wanted to play Blood Bowl, and I probably have a team that I would build. I'd build my Nagaroth Nightmares and go from there. But I'd have to have somebody else invest. At the bare minimum, I need another opponent. Then I probably need more people to invest so that I can have the game variety that I'd want, both for me and for the channel, because I don't want to have the same two factions squaring off all the time unless it's part of a campaign. And then I've got to get them convinced to buy in, and that's more money that they've got to spend. And if they don't buy in, or I decide I don't like it, those models are useless to me now. So it's a real challenge to try and convince myself to invest in a specialist game. That was really what I wanted to talk about, but at the same time, I acknowledge that not all of the specialist games have these problems. Speed Freaks, where you call it a spin-off for a specialist game, that will have the models available to put straight into a game of Warhammer 40,000 for the Orcs. Kill Team, Rogue Trader is actually getting codices for the two special mini-factions, so they can be used in 40k. Great. And obviously Kill Team uses the same units as 40k, so those can be dropped straight in. Great. I've already mentioned about Warhammer Underworld, so sometimes it's not so bad. Some games are quite cheap to invest in, particularly games like Kill Team. You only really need the rulebook and the board because you'll already have the models. Admittedly, that's still not cheap, but if you're willing to buy the team boxes that give you the squad and the terrain pieces, well, that's not a bad investment. If you do decide to buy a sector board or a kill zone board, or you're buying a box set, at that point it is probably good value, and you'll get use out of those boards again if you play smaller games on like at 1k points, or maybe you play something else on them that means that they're more versatile. And sometimes getting people invested into specialist games isn't as hard because you have box sets, you have easy starter sets. So going back to Blood Bowl, you have the main starter box, which I think is humans versus orcs, but then every team is kind of self-contained, so you need to just buy that team. And it's not a huge investment outside of the person or people who buy the starter box and get the playing field for you to play on. So I guess if I were to sum up, just go over what I've taken away from doing this, because obviously I came into this video not entirely sure of my own stance, and sort of wanted to explain it and work it all out in my own head as well. And I'm sure you guys will provide plenty of ideas in the comments as well. My main takeaway is, if you're going to go into specialist games, you just need to think ahead a little bit. Plan, am I going to get enough out of this game that I'm going to consider it a good investment? This is an expensive hobby now, and that money that you put into a specialist game could be better spent on a new unit or two for your army. It could be better spent on starting a brand new army. buying a army book, battle tome, codex, whatever you want to call it, for your faction, and then buying the first couple of units, depending on the box. You have to weigh up, am I going to get enough value out of this relative to what I could do if I just stayed in the main games? Obviously, that will depend on you as a person. How much value do you think you need to extract for an investment to be worth it? And yeah, I leave that one up to you to decide. But for me, I think I will try and do something with specialist games. I'm very conscious of the fact that I'm not with most of my gaming group for several months of the year at the moment with university. And with this being my final year of university coming up, after that, who knows where we're going to end up? I could end up on the other side of the country from all of them, or maybe even, God forbid, the other side of the world. I don't know. So it's something I've got to be conscious of, but I would like to give specialist games a try. I'd love to play a game of Blood Bowl and just try it out, see if it's worth it for me. But I've got to convince my friends of that and come up with some reasons. And yeah, it's just a bit of thinking for me. But I hope that you enjoyed this video, just listening to me working everything out. And let me know your thoughts in the comments below. What do you think of specialist games? Are they a nice distraction? Are they too expensive to invest in? Are they always really worth your time? Are they good value? What are your experiences with them? Let me know, because I'd be very interested to see what you have to say. But that is all for today. And I should say that by the time this video goes out, I'm going to be back at university. So it's going to be a new start, new backdrop once again. I keep moving around, which is why I don't really invest in a proper audio setup. I apologise, people who constantly shout at me in the Deadless Podcasters. I'm always moving around, so I never get a proper setup. But back to university, which means more collecting, hopefully a new hobby project, and a new start overall. So, thank you very much for watching. This has been my thoughts on specialist games and the various spin-offs. It's been Tactica Imperialis, and I'll see you all again. Bye for now.